The Professor now, Craig McKenzie, Head of the English Department at UJ. Prof, good to have you with us. And the mere fact that we're talking about someone with the stature of Nadine Gordimer, who was such good friends with Nelson Mandela, how in the world do you try and explain to someone the life she's had?
Extraordinary life. She lived a long life, as you've just said, 90 years old, just over. But also was active for all of those years. She was a prodigy. She produced her first fiction at the age of 13. She was publishing regularly by 17, and her first major works came out in her 20s. So she's been around right through this period of the build-up to the apartheid, 1948 and beyond. She saw all of the hardening of those years. She saw the liberation and the aftermath.
But it's beyond what South Africans, Prof, know to be Nadine Gordimer. The entire world knew about it because of exactly what she was doing in this fight against apartheid.
She was a very, very vocal, very conspicuous and very important figure for South Africa, and in a very positive way. She was a voice of conscience during those dark days, and she's continued to speak her mind. She's with unflinching honesty.
One of the quotes that we put out a little bit earlier, I tweeted it out earlier, I love this quote, Prof, if I may. Truth isn't always beauty, but the hunger for it is. And that's perhaps exactly how you sum up Nadine Gordimer. She wasn't necessarily smooth out around the edges, but she told you what she thought about you.
Absolutely so. Her honesty is perhaps the most important thing about her. And her courage. She was a courageous person. She, a very formidable person, I might tell you. I've interviewed her twice or three times in the last couple of years. And she was a tiny, frail woman, but resolute, of sound mind, great courage, and she spoke her mind. Kind of Desmond Tutu type of figure for literature. That's what she was like.
Didn't seem to care much what you thought of her as long as she told you what she thought about you. When it comes to now, when your students at the University of Johannesburg and those globally, for example, how do you teach them one thing about Nadine Gordimer? There's so much to teach, but what's the one thing that you would try and share with them?
I've taught one thing with great effect, and that is her short story 6 Feet of the Country. Because although it was written in the 1950s, it deals with issues that are current today. A young black migrant worker dies on a farm in tragic circumstances. His death causes a whole ripple of all kinds of consequences. And Gordimer's point was that individual lives come up against those hard things in this world, and she was able to fix that in the 1950s, and that I've taught to great effect in the last few years. So that the art of what she did has not died by any means.
Not by any means at all. I mean, some of her work, as I was mentioning in that intro to you, Professor, was some of her work being translated into 40 different languages. To talk about transcending nation states and state nations into any language you can almost name, they know who she is.
Well, I mean, I might tell you just as an anecdote that the first time I met her was in the 90s when I was compiling this very big bibliography on her. I had to actually go to her own house because she was the only one who had these translations into Finnish and Japanese and so on. They weren't available in South Africa, and I actually had to go and be a house guest with her in her own study to see these things. And I got a really good sense, this is many years ago, of just what a global figure she is.
It's actually a wonderful study that she was in. I went to the house many years ago as well. Grand, old, beautiful home, a study that is second to none, really. The one thing that viewers, I think, from someone like you can take away today, if you had to try and sum up, if at all possible, Professor, in one sentence, Nadine Gordimer, what does Professor McKenzie remember from her?
A courageous artist. That was what she was. She told it like it was, and she had the intelligence and the integrity to say it directly and without fear or favour.
So thank you very much indeed for coming in today. The Professor Craig McKenzie, Head of the English Department at the University of Johannesburg, sharing some of the anecdotes and memories that he has of what I'm sure many will consider a legend in South African literature, Nadine Gordimer, passing away peacefully in her sleep, we understand, at the age of 90.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com